This is Hangar 316, and it's story time for young and old. The story of Jonah. Long ago, right about 3,000 years or so, there lived a prophet of God in the northern kingdom of Israel, a man by the name of Jonah. Jonah means dove in Hebrew, and he was the son of Amittai, which means truth or faithfulness. And those meanings will make the story of Jonah a bit ironic. Well, let's get to the story. Jonah was given a message by the Lord. The message simply from Yahweh was, "Go immediately to Nineveh, that large capital city, and announce judgment against its people, because their wickedness has come to my attention." Jonah 1, verse 2 in the NET Bible. As a little background, Nineveh was in Assyria, and the Assyrians in the 8th century BC continued as one of the most ruthless kingdoms the world had ever known. Back to the story. Upon hearing from God, Jonah reacted immediately. But instead of heading to Nineveh, he decided to run and head for the westernmost port known in the ancient world, a place called Tarshish. Tarshish was probably located on the east coast of what we now know as Spain. So to get there, he headed to the port of Joppa, where he booked passage on a Phoenician merchant ship, and off he went. His plan, to get as far away from the Lord as possible. It must have been early in the trip when God hurled a powerful wind on the sea. It caused such a violent tempest that there was great fear among the crew. They thought the ship might break apart. The sailors tried everything, from tossing cargo overboard to each praying to their own God, but nothing helped. While all of this was happening, Jonah decided to go to the hold below deck, where he fell fast asleep. There he was approached by the ship's captain, who said, "What are you doing asleep? Get up and cry out to your God. Perhaps your God might take notice of us, so that we might not die." That's from Jonah 1, verse 6. Meanwhile, the sailors planned to find out why all of this was happening, and to do so, they decided to cast lots. The casting of lots is a kind of rolling the dice, or drawing of the short straw. And in this case, the casting of lots was designed to find out who was at fault for the disaster. Well, I don't think I have to tell you what happened next. Jonah drew the short straw. The sailors then approached Jonah. "Tell us, whose fault is it that this disaster has overtaken us? What's your occupation? Where do you come from? What's your country? And who are your people?" Jonah's response left out some telling details. He said nothing about his occupation as a prophet, or whose fault it was behind this natural disaster. He simply said, "I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." Jonah 1, verse 9. With that answer, the sailors grew even more afraid and said, "What have you done?" Because Jonah had previously told them he was running from the Lord. With the wind whipping and the waves roaring, the sailors said to Jonah, "What should we do to you so that the sea will calm down for us?" From Jonah 1, verse 11. To which Jonah replied, "Throw me into the ocean, Being afraid of Yahweh, the sailors ignored Jonah's response initially and tried to row back to dry land, but it was to no avail. They ultimately had to give in and throw Jonah into the sea. Once they did, the ocean became calm, and the sailors had great fear of the Lord. Regarding Jonah, as he plunged into the sea and was engulfed by the ocean current and mighty waves, God sent a huge fish to swallow him. He was in the belly of the whale, if it was a whale, for 3 days and 3 nights. Down, down, down to the depths. Dismay and distress for Jonah. And then a poem. Prayer. I called out to the Lord from my distress, and he answered me. From the belly of Sheol I cried out for help, and you heard my prayer. Jonah 2, verse 2. I went down to the very bottoms of the mountains. The gates of the netherworld barred me in forever. But you brought me up from the pit, O Lord, my God. Jonah 2, verse 6. But as for me, I promise to offer a sacrifice to you with a public declaration of praise. I will surely do what I have promised. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Jonah 2, verse 9. With that, the Lord told the fish to vomit Jonah onto dry land, where Yahweh's message to him came a second time. Go immediately to Nineveh and deliver it the message that I give you. This time Jonah went immediately, and after venturing into the great city a full day proclaimed, At the end of 40 days, Nineveh will be overthrown. Jonah 3, verse 4. Well, guess what? Jonah's message was received by the people of Nineveh, all the way up to the king. The people believed in God's message for them. He told them to turn away from the way they were going. The biblical word is repent, and to go the opposite way. To show their change of ways, the Ninevites, from their animals all the way up to the king, put on scratchy clothing known as sackcloth. They sat on ashes and did not eat. Their hope? That Yahweh would relent from bringing judgment to them. Well, he did, as he saw the Ninevites turning from their evil way of living. Jonah, for his part, wasn't happy about the result. In fact, he was terribly displeased and angry with Yahweh. O Lord, this is just what I thought you would do, and the reason why I was running to Tarshish, to stop this from happening. You are gracious and merciful, and now I don't want to live anymore. I just want to die. The Lord's response, Are you really so very angry? Jonah 4, verse 4. Our story doesn't end here, though. Jonah left the city and set up a shelter to the east of Nineveh, where he could watch to see what would happen. The heat was so intense, but the Lord had a plant grow up quickly to provide shade for Jonah. Just as quickly, though, it died when a worm attacked it. With the protective shade of the plant now gone, and the sun and the hot east wind bearing down on him, Jonah once again hated life and wanted to die. The final exchange between the Lord and Jonah now begins. Verse 9. Then God said to Jonah, Is it right for you to be angry because the plant died? Yes, Jonah retorted, even angry enough to die. Then the Lord said, "You feel sorry about the plant, though you did nothing to put it there. It came quickly and died quickly. But Nineveh has more than 120,000 people living in spiritual darkness, not to mention all the animals. Shouldn't I feel sorry for such a great city?" As we end story time and close the book of Jonah, let's wonder together why we have made this a story about the miracle of a man living in the stomach of a whale. Isn't it really about, one, God's mercy and love even for those who are against him, and two, our unwillingness to do the same? Jesus summed it up in Matthew chapter 5, beginning with verse 43. "You have heard the law that says, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. In that way you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven. For he gives his sunlight to both the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the just and the unjust alike. If you love only those who love you, what reward is there for that? Even corrupt tax collectors do that much. If you are kind only to your friends, how are you different from anyone else? Even pagans do that. But you are to be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." That's Matthew 5, verses 43 through 48 in the New Living Translation. This has been Storytime at Hangar 316.